The difference in thinking patterns between the East and the West is reflected in the way they handle problems and understand the world. Western civilization tends to converge towards reductionist thinking and partial breakthrough theory, focusing on simplifying and exploring the fundamental principles of things. Eastern civilization tends to lean towards divergent thinking and holistic equilibrium theory, understanding the world through a comprehensive consideration of multiple factors, emphasizing the diversity and complexity of things from a macro perspective. For example, Westerners play chess and emphasize local tactical competition. When Chinese people play Go, they need to strategically plan to surround their opponents. For example, Western civilization is like boxing kung fu, pursuing only fast and unbreakable. The Eastern civilization is like Tai Chi Zen, advocating the unity of the mean and the maximization of the intangible. Western methodology is adept at simplifying complex problems, emphasizing single-point breakthroughs and pursuing local extremes, and exploring the core of problems through single-factor analysis. This method is particularly evident in science and philosophy, as it attempts to reveal the fundamental principles of things through analysis and logical deduction. However, this approach may overlook the complexity of the essence of things and the interplay of multiple factors. The methodology of the East focuses more on holism, positive and negative, and the balance of the mean, attempting to understand local phenomena within a global framework. The difference between the two can be illustrated by a clear example. The functions of a single app on European and American mobile phones are often very simple and refreshing, and the functions of Chinese mobile apps are often very comprehensive, complex, and cumbersome. Wishing to put all the functions of mobile phones in the world into one app, we can see that the above first involves the difference between divergent thinking and convergent thinking. Divergent thinking, also known as divergent thinking or radiation thinking, refers to starting from a single goal and thinking along various paths to explore multiple answers. Divergent thinking is flexible, versatile, fluent, and unique, emphasizing grasping problems from a global perspective. This requires rich imagination and a grand holistic view in order to coordinate and unify numerous scattered thoughts. The core of divergent global thinking is not dispersal, but dynamically finding the key points of the core in order to form a global perspective. Secondly, this also involves the difference between logical thinking and visual thinking. Analogy, imagination, intuition. Einstein brilliantly discussed the difference between logic and imagination. Logic will get you from A to B, while imagination will take you everywhere. Western civilization is better at logical deduction from general to specific. The Eastern civilization tends to lean towards empirical induction from special to general, pursuing pragmatism. At the cultural level, Eastern culture tends to evaluate a person as a whole, emphasizing the consistency between their thoughts, actions, and moral character. It is believed that these aspects influence each other, and those whose moral character is consistent are often considered truly good. On the contrary, Western culture tends to lean towards an analytical perspective, believing that people can have multiple facets that can be independent or even conflicting with each other. For example, Oppenheimer was a great scientist, but he was not successful in his private life. He had extramarital affairs, neglected his children's education, and even had a child commit suicide due to depression. However, this does not affect his positive evaluation in Western culture, but in Eastern culture, he is likely to be blacklisted in history. Western philosophy emphasizes learning to know, while Chinese philosophy emphasizes learning to apply. Therefore, the West separates knowledge and morality, while China emphasizes practice and the unity of knowledge and action, emphasizing the consistency between inner cultivation and external expression, inner sanctity and outer kingship. This difference in thinking is also reflected in medical practice, where traditional Chinese medicine adopts a holistic and systematic approach, emphasizing the interconnection and balance between various parts of the body. Western medicine tends to focus on local treatment, focusing on the direct causes and treatment of symptoms. Specifically, traditional Chinese medicine is a dialectical multi-tendon global thinking that emphasizes the diversity and synergistic effects of drug components to achieve overall therapeutic effects. Traditional Chinese medicine may seem like a chaotic mixture of ingredients, but in reality, there is a general principle. The various components of the medicine should work together to achieve a global effect, emphasizing the coordinated efforts of all branches of the military, including land, sea, and air, to strike diseases in a three-dimensional manner. But the disadvantage is that sometimes there may be a mix of good and bad, a lack of understanding, and even situations where it is difficult to distinguish between truth and falsehood. Western medicine, on the other hand, is a typical case of one stick, one path thinking, emphasizing the pursuit of perfection and practicality in the local area, placing great emphasis on the single high purity of drugs, and neglecting the unified and coordinated operation of various branches of the military. Western medicine usually adopts a local treatment strategy, focusing on the treatment of specific symptoms, similar to treating the head for headaches and treating the foot for foot pain. At present, Chinese and Western thinking is also converging. For example, the famous cocktail therapy proposed by Chinese-American scientist He Dai is the most effective treatment for AIDS at present. 3 or more antiviral drugs are used together to treat AIDS, which can not only reduce the drug resistance caused by single drug use, but also maximize the inhibition of virus replication. Why traditional Chinese medicine and Western medicine cannot completely replace each other at present? Mainly because the human body is a flexible system. The so-called flexibility, see section 5.3 per on the Intelligent Crown flexibility ability, refers to the significant individual differences which are very personalized and personalized. This is the biggest difficulty. The practice of Western medicine is to classify diseases into patterns, simplify them into a few pure types using Occam's razor, and then use high-purity drugs to divide and treat them. The practice of traditional Chinese medicine is to consolidate the body's defense and repair capabilities on a global level and achieve treatment goals through comprehensive regulation. The disadvantage of this is that the body's single-point resistance is slightly weaker, but the overall ability becomes stronger. Both systems have their own advantages and limitations. Western medicine has advantages in acute disease and symptom control, while traditional Chinese medicine has unique advantages in chronic disease and body regulation. Based on the above discussion, we can make a simple summary. 1. Western civilization pursues the ultimate of the local, while Chinese philosophy pursues the unity of the global and the local. The West tends to focus on local details and can take things to the extreme, but often does not consider the opposite of the situation, and sometimes even thinks that having a certain ultimate artifact is invincible. This is a common way of thinking in the West, and the lack of a global perspective is the root cause of many crises. The concept of Chinese culture is a combination of the overall and the local, with the local being subordinate to the overall situation, arranged in a comprehensive and three-dimensional manner, and responding to changes with consistency. However, in terms of details, the pursuit is often not as meticulous as in the West, such as the realism of sculpture and painting, and even emphasizes too much is too little. There is often room for maneuver in doing things, which sometimes leads to the phenomenon of being careless and unable to do things thoroughly. 2. Because Chinese culture pursues a global perspective, it is a highly inclusive framework where all foreign cultures can be utilized and absorbed. A typical example is the integration of Confucianism, Buddhism, and Taoism, creating a harmonious atmosphere. As a comparison, various sects in the West have been fighting and dividing each other, even within sects, for thousands of years. The root cause lies in the fact that Western civilization often focuses on local perspectives, so its ability to absorb foreign cultures is far inferior to that of the East. This has also led to Eastern civilization being unable to enter the mainstream in the West and remaining in the stage of mysterious curiosity and even entertainment. This is also why the author of this book, which involves such a grand and comprehensive theme of both Chinese and Western cultures, must be a Chinese. The root cause lies in the fact that Western scholars understand and absorb Eastern culture to a much lesser extent than Eastern scholars do. Of course, both of these old systems have their own limitations and cannot fully adapt to the new situation of the AI era. A new paradigm and new thinking that inherits the traditional architecture of China and the West are needed. Please refer to chapter 4.21 WHY of this book for details, especially the discussion of point-line surface body thinking, which involves the integration of Chinese and Western thinking. In fact, human understanding of the world is becoming increasingly comprehensive, and the local details are becoming more and more abundant. It is necessary to carry out a thorough ideological revolution of the integration of Eastern global thinking and Western local detail thinking. This new paradigm of thinking can inherit the advantages of both Eastern and Western traditions, while also adapting to the complex and ever-changing demands of modern times, forming a more comprehensive, inclusive, and a flexible cognitive framework. I am Wu Huaiyu, a PhD from the Chinese Academy of Sciences and a postdoctoral fellow from Peking University, and the founder of AI philosophy.